Here's a full breakdown on the Morby Method versus the Wadley Method, why they're actually not rivals, and how understanding the difference between a deal structure and a capital source can change the way you close every deal, creative or traditional institutional finance. So, two tools, two different jobs. People keep asking whether the 5-tool stack competes with the Morby Method. It doesn't. One of these is a deal structure. The other is a way to fund the gap inside almost any deal, creative or traditional. Understanding exactly where each one does its work is the key to using both effectively. So the Morby Method, a deal structure, a way to buy real estate by negotiating directly with a motivated seller instead of going through a bank from scratch. Whereas the Wadley Method is a capital source of 5 unsecured tools sequenced correctly that fund whatever gap exists in any deal, creative or traditional. So let's break down both properly so you can see exactly where each one actually does the work and why most serious investors will eventually need both. So what the Morby Method actually is. The Morby Method, also called the capital stack method or the stack method by Pace Morby himself, is a deal structure, not a funding product. It is a way to buy real estate by negotiating directly with a motivated seller instead of going through a bank from scratch. When you find a seller willing to do this, it's genuinely powerful. Below market terms, no fresh institutional underwriting, and deals that a traditional lender would never touch. So, seller financing. The owner carries part of the note, eliminating the need for a traditional lender to originate the full loan. Subject to, you take over a seller's existing mortgage payments, keeping the original loan in place without triggering a new underwrite. And the DSCR layering. Sometimes a DSCR loan is layered in to cover part of the purchase price, rounding out the capital stack. Or a seller carryback, I think they're called. So, where the gap actually shows up in the Morby Method. Here is the part that gets glossed over. Finding the seller willing to do subject to is only half the deal. Someone still has to fund the gap that lets the seller actually walk away. And traditionally, that has meant private gator money. That approach is expensive, cross-collateralized, and slow to vet. The seller needs cash. The deal does not close without it. Traditional gap funding is gator lenders. The gap has traditionally been filled by private gator lenders, but at a steep cost. They're underwriting your track record. They need, cross-collateral in many cases. They're not going to go second position without a great relationship and without a great track record. And the real cost of gator money is typically terms run 15 to 25% returns to the funder. So that could just be over 6 months of a flip. If you annualize that, it's 30 to 50% cross. These days, cross-collateral on a separate property at 150% minimum coverage, a personal vetting process, so they'll have an interview, real balloon risk on the seller carry years down the line. Gator lending is expensive. Let's not dance around it. It is slow and it ties up another property if you're trying to get them to go second position. There is a better way to fill the same gap. So, what the Wadley Method actually is. The Wadley Method is not a deal structure. It never finds you the seller or negotiates the subject to terms. It is a capital source. 5 unsecured tools sequenced correctly that fund whatever gap exists in the deal without tying up another property or handing a stranger 15 to 25% over 6 months of the upside. Debt consolidation. Frees up existing credit capacity to redeploy it into the deal, as well as cash flow and boosting your FICO score. It's the biggest lever you can pull to jump your FICO 40 to 80 points in a single round. We got rapid gap funding, fast capital deployed in days, not weeks of vetting, 0% credit card stacking, layers in third, interest-free capital for repairs, reserves, closing costs, whatever you need. You can always liquidate cards as well via plastic.com. Then we got HELOC and business line of credit. These are the lines of credit layer that go in round 3. So one's backed by the revenue in your business, and the other is backed by the equity in your home or an LLC-owned property. None of these put a lien on the property you're looking to acquire, and they do not interfere with your hard money in first position. No returns owed to a private investor, no cross-collateral required, and it's funded in days, not weeks. So where the Wadley Method fits inside a Morby deal. If you've already found a seller and negotiated the subject to, You do not have to hand the gap to a gator lender. Rapid gap funding covers it in days, no lien on your own property, and 0% stacking covers whatever's left for repairs and reserves. The Morby method gets you the deal. The Wadley method can be how you actually close it without giving up equity or a second property. The same deal structure, same seller agreement, a cheaper and faster way to actually close it without cross-collateralizing another property or paying a private investor double-digit returns on your upside. Obviously, the exception to this is if you do go for a HELOC on a LLC-owned investment property or a home, that is cross-collateralized if you look at it in that way, but it's way cheaper and one of the most flexible tools an investor can actually access. Go and look at our video on velocity banking. So, this is not only a creative finance tool. This is the part people miss. The stack was not built only for creative finance deals. A completely traditional hard money or DSCR purchase has the exact same gap. The lender covers most of it, but you still need cash for the rest. The 5 tools fill that gap exactly the same way, regardless of whether the deal underneath it is a Morby style negotiation or a conventional purchase. So, for a creative finance deal subject to a seller finance negotiated, seller needs cash to walk away, gap filled by the Wadley stack instead of a gator lender. No cross collateral, no 15 to 25% returns owed over 4 to 6 months. And then on a traditional hard money and DSCR deal, lender covers the bulk of the purchase. Down payment, rehab reserves, and closing costs still need to come from somewhere. Gap filled by the Wadley stack, the exact same way, same tools, same sequence, same speed. Down payment, rehab reserves, and closing costs still need to come from somewhere in every single deal, whether that's your back pocket or trying to do a seller carryback. The Wadley method fills that gap the same way, whether the underlying deal is subject to negotiation or a straightforward hard money purchase. So side by side, honestly, neither one replaces the other. If you're good at finding motivated sellers, the Morby method gets you deals nobody else can access. So if you're on the phone all day, maybe you've gone through the wholesaling route, great. Seller finance is awesome. If you want to fund the gap in that deal or in a completely traditional purchase without cross-collateralizing a property or paying private investors 15 to 25% over 6 months, that is where the stack comes in. So the Morby method finds and structures the deal, does not fund the gap on its own, requires a motivated seller and negotiation skill, access to deals and a traditional lender would never touch. The Wadley method, on the other hand, funds the gap, creative or traditional deals, does not find or negotiate the deal, requires a decent credit profile, not a motivated seller, and there's no cross-collateralization, no private investor returns owed. They solve different problems. One requires a motivated seller and negotiation skill. The other requires decent credit file. We're starting at about 650 on the whole stack because debt consolidation can boost you into the 700s for round 2, 3, and onwards. Most investors will eventually need both, and understanding that distinction is what separates investors who get stuck at the gap from those who close and expand their capacity to not do one deal at a time, but get into 2, 3, 4. See what this looks like with your deal. So whether you have a subject deal already lined up or a straightforward hard money purchase, the next step is mapping out exactly where your gap is and how the stack fills it. Every deal is different. The sequence of tools, the amounts, the time all depend on your specific numbers and credit profile. So head over to gapfunder.com/apply. The link's in the description. Book a call. We will map out exactly where the gap is and how the stack fills it. Worst case, you walk away with a game plan and the steps to get prepared. So find your deal, identify the gap, book your call, close the deal. Let's get fair up it. I'm Mick Wadley, founder of Gap Funded. We're talking days, not weeks. Find the deal however you find it, creative or traditional. The Morby method and the Wadley method, they're not rivals. They are 2 tools that solve 2 different problems, and the investor who understands that distinction are the ones who stop losing deals at the gap. The deal structure. The Morby method finds and structured deals nobody else can access. Use it when you have a motivated seller and negotiation skill to get a yes. The capital source. The Wadley method funds the gap inside any deal, creative or traditional, without cross-collateralization on another property or handing a stranger 15 to 25% of your upside. Really, that's not the problem. It's getting a stranger to trust you to get the deal done. The decision. How you fund the gap is a separate decision from how you find the deal. It does not have to cost you that private money price tag or put another property on the line unless you want to do a HELOC, which is a fantastic tool for people to have a revolving line and essentially become their own bank to use pay down without renegotiating, paying closing costs every single time. So that decision's yours to make. And now you know the difference. Apply at gapfunder.com/apply. Let's go close something.